know.
Hey,
Okay.
check it out. I'm athleisure suit Larry now.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
we
I bought
don't.
this like $25 tracksuit from Costco.
Is that Costco? Fuck
Yeah,
yeah,
baby.
It is. Fuck yeah, pure comfort, pure
Yeah,
discount
baby.
comfort, pure discount comfort.
Pure.
Fucking
Yeah,
throw one of those bad boys on. How's a couple $1.50 hot dogs? You're
yeah,
golden.
baby. Straight to the dome. Get fucking ketchup all over my fresh new suit. Yeah, I think you were gonna say we don't live stream anymore, and we don't.
We don't live stream. We
because-
don't. Do you post the video still?
Yeah, I post on YouTube.
Okay, fuck it.
That's where we'll eventually get money if more than actually our subscribers keeps going up, but it's like one an episode. So
Do you post? Yeah, but that's that's exponential growth. Do you post the video on Facebook too, like to our
I
page?
post a link of the YouTube video on
Video
our,
too.
yeah.
Got
I
it.
figured it was that way it would arbitrarily drive up our numbers on YouTube.
Got it.
But
No,
if you're
piss
listening, if
off.
anybody's listening to this and you don't watch YouTube for moral or ethical reasons, but you can get just the audio through ethical reasons that you want to see the video, let me know and I'll figure out how to get it to you. I can't put it
OnlyFans.
on.
Through
I can't put it
Pornhub.
on Vivo
Through
because
OnlyFans.
on our OnlyFans. But the big problem is YouTube lets you post videos that are a gigabyte, and that's how big these episodes are. Whereas
These
all
episodes are what? Are you recording these in 4K?
I guess I don't know. I just whatever the default was 4 years ago or 3 years ago when we started doing the video on my video editing program is what they are.
A gigabyte?
I think it's 1920 DPI or whatever.
For
Yeah.
our potato like built-in webcams?
Yeah,
Like
so
we could probably lower the resolution a little
the
bit.
thing is, if somebody's listening to this and they don't like YouTube, I will lower the resolution so I
No, you
can
won't.
put it on a different site.
Fuck it. Don't like YouTube? Fuck you.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey,
you don't have
internet.
to sign up.
welcome to episode 233
Yes. Very
of
good.
Outrage Factory, the podcast where we look at the things that made people bad online this week and explain why they're dumb for caring. I'm your co-host, Eric Bolin.
I'm your other co-host, Dale DeRuiter.
What are you eating there? Looks
I
like
apologize in
chia
advance.
pudding. Oh,
I'm
what is
having
that? A fucking jar of
matcha.
milk?
It's a jar of matcha tea latte, and it's the first time I've ever made matcha tea, and it's fucking strong. So if I act a little speedy on this pod, that's why.
We're podcasting. Better get my milk jar. It looks like there's like nothing but like white in there.
There was this much milk that you know how it is.
Wait, is there a lot of caffeine in matcha?
Yeah, dude. I didn't think it was that bad. I only put 2 teaspoons of matcha in there, and I'm fucking wired up.
So fucking today,
talking makes me hot.
Today we went to Starbucks, and my son. And I'm like, Noah, what do you want? And he's like, oh, I just get this like matcha green tea frappuccino. And I was like, that sounds like it has caffeine in it. So I text his mom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, is there caffeine in this? And she's like, yeah, it's just matcha, so there's not much. And I was like, oh, okay. And this is like a person who manages like many Starbucks.
We're not gonna parent shame on here, but
we're not
that much caffeine in matcha is wrong.
Well, so I got it for him. And then he was a little perky, little bit perky the rest of the day.
Yeah. I think I don't know how much caffeine's in it, but it's like there's that whole thing where there's more caffeine in tea, but it interacts with our body differently, so it feels like less caffeine than coffee.
Studies have found that matcha can contain between 19 and 44 milligrams of caffeine.
That's not that much. That's half of a coffee.
Yeah,
that's
coffee
half of
is
a
like
coffee.
What, 100?
I thought coffee was like 80 or 90.
Kate sent me this thing, and it was like this infographic of like caffeinated drinks in the States. Yeah. And there's something that I want to try. Where was it from? Dunkin'? somewhere. Where?
Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, Panera Bread, and they have a drink that's like basically like 10 coffees. It's like in
Oh,
one
wow.
drink, and it's like more than even energy drinks.
Wait, isn't that the one that someone drank and died on? And it has like 1,000 calories or
Oh, it's
something?
like lemonade. Panera
Yeah, it doesn't
caffeinated
have
lemonade
a
chargers.
fuck ton of sugar in it too?
Oh, almost definitely.
Because I think I remember somebody was like trying to sue Panera because they were drinking like 3 of those a day, and they didn't look into it, like how much shit it was in it, like because there's apparently like a fuck ton of sugar and
Panera charged
caffeine.
lemonade. A 20-ounce serving has 260 milligrams of caffeine.
Jesus Christ.
And 82 grams of sugar. Capitalism, baby.
That's
We're
what I
doing
was
it.
talking about, baby. So anybody wants that translated into normal terms, would you say 250 grams of caffeine?
260 grams of caffeine, yeah.
That's like double a full-size Rockstar or Monster.
Yeah.
And
It's like two giant, like, of those tall boy energy drinks.
yeah, and it's 4 cups of coffee in one.
So it would
And
be like
then
8 cups of coffee.
yeah, and then it's you said 80 grams of sugar?
Okay.
That is 80 grams of sugar is like what, 3 Cokes?
Oh, just a fucking absurd amount of sugar. It's
Yeah,
basically
80
like
grams is a lot.
syrup with methamphetamine in it.
I mean,
I'm desperate to try it.
I definitely wanna try it for sure. But I don't know if I'd be able to pod on that.
And Dale, what's been this is gonna be the least tight 45 minutes ever, but what's
We're
been
only
going
10
on
in.
with you, buddy?
Not much. Is this you asking me about my life, or you want me to get straight into the bank shit?
Yeah, just catching up. We didn't get
Oh yeah, we didn't pod last week because I was fucking in. Well, you had COVID,
I
but
was dying of the COVID Reaper finally caught me.
And I was taking level 2 occupational first aid. I don't know which of those is worse to get, but I was like fucking in first aid school for 8 hours a day for 5 days straight. So I was like not doing any pod like preparation or anything. And then you got COVID, and I was like, well, I'm not even gonna bug him about doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Because
COVID
was
I spent
sorry.
Oh, what were you gonna say? COVID was
I was gonna say COVID was so bad we trashed our entire economy, so I can't imagine Derek going through it would be that bad.
I mean, I don't know if it was economy trashing bad, but I was definitely like Saturday and Sunday, I was basically just like fucking dead to the world. Like I just like slept and sweat and like that was about it. Like spent the whole like weekend in a fever dream basically where I was like, is this reality or not? And then after that it was basically just like a bad cold. But those first 2 days I was like, everything is infected. I'm fucking dying.
Yeah.
And I felt super shitty. But it wasn't like, I don't know that it was like, if I was a less hardy man, it may have killed me. But then,
or if OG COVID was a lot worse.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I've had COVID twice now, and the first time was about as bad as you said. I don't know about 2 days, but I had this weird thing where I was just like fucking dumb. Like I had like brain fog. Andrea would talk to me, and I just like wouldn't hear what she was saying, so it was normal. But I also couldn't think about the stuff I would be anyways.
It's like you were distracted by like conspiracy theories. You were just like zoned out.
Yeah, there was no conspiracies running in the back of my head. It was just like a cloud of nothing, and then I was just like, "What?" And it was kind of nice, like to just have nothing going on upstairs and just living like that and not having to worry about anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
that long COVID, man. We all got it. We can use that excuse now.
The long COVID just makes me have no energy. Although I don't think I have it. I think I'm just fat and out of shape. But long COVID, I'll blame that instead.
Yeah, it's long COVID. Okay. Should we get into it?
Let's get into it. Yeah, one of the things I was bugging Derek about was I was like, we got to talk about this bank stuff because I finally got a grasp on it, and I want to talk it before it just fucking goes into the ether and I don't know what it is anymore. So
I know you did a ton of research, so I'm just gonna let you talk and look at my phone for the next.
I was doing a ton of research, and then I went down a rabbit hole on ESG credits, which has nothing to do with the banking shit, so that doesn't help or whatever. But the research I did do on the banking shit was I listened to a bunch of podcasts, and they explained the bank shit to me. So I just wanna kinda talk about it in, I don't wanna say dumb person terms, but I wanna say layman's person terms, because a lot of the times when I kinda grasp something, I feel like I have the ability to translate it into layman's terms. So, Derek, what do you know
It's a
about the
gift.
bank stuff?
It's a gift. I know the bank was like, um, number one, they were a huge, they were a bank primarily used by like startups in Silicon Valley, hence
Mhm,
Silicon Valley Bank,
mhm,
startups and like venture capitalists. And I know that they were basically over leveraged on bonds, I think. So when like
mhm.
uh
2-year
morg
bonds.
2 year so when mortgage rates started like getting jacked the fuck up, the bank was suddenly in uh those bonds were like essentially like bonds are a security that are best
I
held.
I gotta make sure, because what I think of when they say 2-year bonds, I feel like that means you can't cash it in for 2 years. Is that right?
What is a 2 year? We should have like interviewed an economist or something
Yeah,
for
but then they would
this.
just say, "Okay, so so what I'll get into it is, like, I don't know, do you know what fractional reserve lending is?
No, fuck no.
Okay, so
Wait,
basically,
fractional lending is what caused the like last financial crisis, was it not?
sort of, yes. So what happens is, when a like what I used to think a bank was, it was like they just had the money that everybody put in there, and then they would lend out that money and make interest on that. But what fractional reserve lending is I don't know the percentage of what it is. I think it's 1 to 10. And basically what that means is if a bank has $1, they can lend out 10. So what the Silicon Valley Credit, or Silicon Valley Bank, which when I first heard that name, I thought it was fake. I was like, "That's not the name of a bank."
Silicon Valley Bank?
Yeah, I thought it was, like, from that TV show Silicon Valley. So anyways, what every bank does is they lend out, like, say, $10, and the money they make on that, they don't just put into their bank and hold there in case a rainy day happens. They start investing that, and they buy, like, land and houses and companies, and they invest it in stocks. And when Derek said they were over leveraged, what that meant was they had too much money invested in stuff and not enough money in their bank to actually pay people if they were to take out all their money. Because what happens is, since banks can lend out $10 for every $1 they have, if everybody who has money in the bank takes that out, it's not there, because the banks lent it out hoping that it comes back before anybody needs it. And so Silicon Valley was the bank that was invested in tech companies and tech startups. So like Google has an account there, Roku has an account there, and all this stuff. And what was happening was, these startup companies would get investments from investors, and they would use their
That's
money.
traditionally who invests.
Yeah, they would use the money that was coming in from investors to, like, pay their overhead, like their staff, they would pay their rent on their offices and stuff, and they would leave the money in Silicon Valley Bank alone. But with the slowdown after COVID, after, like, all the tech companies got artificially inflated from COVID and everybody working from home and using more tech and buying more tech, and then the economy started failing, and tech is it's like, it's one of those things that people only buy when they have extra money. Like, if you're hurting to pay your groceries, you're not gonna go buy TVs or buy stuff from Google or
Probably
Roku
not.
or all these other companies. So what started happening was, these companies were making less money, so they had to dip into their bank accounts to start paying their overhead, like their wages and their rent and stuff. And then what happened was, this is the first time that a bank has kind of started getting its what it says it has in the bank getting pulled out in the online banking era. So I can't remember which specific guy it was, but somebody was basically like, yo, Silicon Valley Bank isn't gonna have enough to cover us all, so I'm pulling all my money out. And then there was a bank run. When a
Yes.
bank run is basically when everybody goes and takes their money out of the bank because they're scared it won't be there if other people take it. So it's like this panic mode. But since it was online, everybody could just do it from their computer. They didn't have to like go into the bank to get their money. So everybody started pulling their money out and a run started going down on Silicon Valley Bank. And then the federal bank people stepped in and kind of just shut everything down so that nobody could get access to their money that's still in the bank and stuff. With me so far? Was that too much?
Keep going. Is there
Okay.
more? Do you know more?
Yeah, there's more. But
Okay.
that's basically how Silicon Valley Bank failed. But there's some more fuckery to it because one of the other things that caused Silicon Valley Bank to fail was there's these old after the crash in 2008, there was this guy, I think his name was Don Frank or Dan Frank, something like that. You can look it up. But he came up with all these different rules that banks would have to go by and have these regulations so that we didn't see the same failing that happened in 2008. And I think that passed in, I want to say 2011. I'm
Oh,
not sure.
Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank.
Yeah, Dodd Frank.
Yeah.
Why I
Yeah.
say Dan or
You
Don?
said Dan Frank.
Okay, whatever. So, anyways, they passed those rules in 2011. Then in 2017, fucking Silicon Valley Bank was like, hey, we don't need these same regulations as other banks from this Dodd Frank stuff. So, because we're a niche bank, we know our people and we're more in tune with our market, so we can have less regulations. And then, like, 50 Republicans and like I think like 18 Democrats were like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. How about we ease up on the regulations of Don or of Silicon Valley Bank? So those were these sort of like pressure testing regulations, whereas like if those were still in place, Silicon Valley wouldn't have been able to send out as much money as they did, and they wouldn't have been as vulnerable to this whole collapse. And another thing that happened was when these regulations were taken off of Silicon Valley Bank, they were able to double dip where they could take the money that they had and invest it in the same companies that held money at the bank. So if you think about, like, say, Roku is a person who, or is a company that had money in this bank. So if I'm this bank and Roku, I think they had 440 million in the bank. So if I take some of the money that Roku says they have in the bank, and then I invest it in Roku, and then Roku's stocks take a shit, then I get dinged twice because they have less money in my bank, and the money I gave them is worth or invested in them is worth less. So it kind of like escalated the rate at which this bank was failing. And then
We saw the same thing with one of those fucking crypto companies that went under recently because what they had done is they took the money that people were giving them.
FTX.
It was either FTX or maybe it was one of the other, but they were like
Mhm.
basically using the money that people were depositing with them and turning around and using it to buy this crypto company's own token that they were
Yeah.
printing. So when they fucking went belly up or like shit started going south, the value
Mhm.
of the token that they had invested all the money in started plummeting. So like things went bad for the company and then it just like compounded it, right? And they
Yeah,
ended up like it sent
it's
the
like a
value of the token
cascade
to zero.
failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the difference between that, Derek, and this is what this bank did was completely legal, whereas that crypto shit was illegal because crypto isn't a bank and you're supposed to manage it like stocks or something where
Well, the other thing is that banks, if you deposit money through a bank, you are insured through the federal
Mhm.
deposit insurance. So like any money that consumers lose when a accredited bank fails is covered by insurance.
Up
Whereas,
to 250 grand.
yeah,
Okay,
you have
sorry, go ahead.
more than 250 grand just laying around in a bank.
No, but this brings me to my big fucking anarchist point is if we all fucking run the banks, then we'll cause them all to fail. It won't affect us. It'll just affect the rich people who have more than 250 grand.
So you're saying if we want to bring the richies down, what we
Yeah.
need to do, starting with the 10 listeners of this podcast, is we all need to go to a bank tomorrow at
Yes.
8 a.m. 8
Yeah.
a.m.'s too early. At 10 a.m. and
Mhm.
withdraw all the funds in it. And if
Yeah.
everyone does that at the same time, we will. So what happens
We
over?
we could kick off a run on the bank where the rich people start taking the
What?
money.
So what happens
Okay,
over
so
250,000?
typically what would happen, okay, so I wanna hit on this FDIC thing because that's the core. I think that's the Federal Deposit Insurance
Sure,
Corporation,
something like that. Yeah.
something like that. They have, it's basically like car insurance where banks will pay a premium and then up to 250 grand will be insured by this corporation. So, but what was happening was, or what's happened now, or sorry, what would happen if the bank failed is that company would seize the bank and start selling off its assets. So it would sell all the property they owned. They would start selling all their stocks and stuff. And one of the regulations that this Dodd-Frank thing was banks had to hold a certain amount of liquid assets, and that's just like stocks and currencies and stuff,
It's shit they can
meaning,
sell
yeah,
when
sell easily, not
shit goes
property where
south.
you have to find a buyer or whatever.
Yeah.
So another thing was Silicon Valley didn't have enough liquid assets. But what would typically happen is the FDIC steps in, sells all the liquid assets right away, or they insure every invest or every depositor up to 250K. So if you have 250K, you're done, you got your money, nice big fat check. But if you're over that, what they do is they sell all the assets the bank had and then try to give it back, like make good on everybody's investment. So basically, they'll give everybody money at the same time. So the people who have the most money in the bank are the losers. So one thing you could say about this is you're like, wow, if I diversify my bank deposits, that will be better for me. And most people would do that, except for Silicon Valley Bank being greedy. They're like, hey, if you guys just put your money in just us so we can have access to it, we'll give you like special rates and stuff. And I don't know if that's what convinced Roku to make one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. So, Roku, a company that everybody's had or everybody knows, had 450 million in their checking account. They only had one account with this bank, no savings, no investment fund, just one checking account that had 440 million in it
Wait, why?
because they're idiots. That makes no sense to anybody because what happens is if you put your money in a savings account, the bank has to pay you a higher percentage on the money it holds as a return or whatever. So they probably convinced Roku to hold it all in the checking account, which has a less interest rate on it. It's nuts. And then where was I? But so now what's happened is the FDIC, the government stepped in and they were like, we're going to give money to the FDIC from the like governmental treasury to make everybody whole. Because when stuff happens to rich people, the government actually does something. But now this sets a bad precedent because Silicon Valley Bank was only paying the premiums to the FDIC to get like coverage for up to 250K. So the FDIC doesn't have enough money to pay above that, but they're still going to pay it because the government's going to give them this magic money that they say isn't coming from the taxpayers. But now, if this happens, it sets the precedence for all other banks to say, fuck the FDC, the government will just step in and make us whole.
Well, small enough banks, no, the government would
Yeah.
just let them eat shit.
Mhm.
But like something like Silicon Valley Bank is big enough that it could have like a cascading effect on the
Yeah.
economy.
So a good measure of this is Silicon Valley Bank, I think, is in total worth like 100 and I want to say 72, but it's a while since I heard the number. So that could be wrong. But they're like just over $100 billion is like how much they hold with all their deposits and all their assets and stuff. Whereas this other bank, Credit Suisse, which is in the process of doing what happened to Silicon Valley, is worth over 700 billion. So if that fails, there's no fucking way the government could just magically come up with 700 billion.
No.
Yeah, unless
They-
yeah, no, they can't because in total they've only sent like I want to say 60 to Ukraine. So anybody who's saying we'll stop sending money to Ukraine, we can cover the banks, that's not even enough money.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
would not, no.
Was that simplified enough? I feel like I was getting lost in the weeds while I was talking about that.
No, I was very I did not understand a ton of that. So
Well, if you didn't understand, buddy, then it's not layman's terms.
I still don't.
Did
Banks
you not
bad.
understand or did you zone out?
Banks
Either answer is
a
okay.
little of both.
Next time you're looking at your phone, just keep it out of the screen.
No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm just like, well, you know,
Hey, it's
you're
fine.
here to explain to the listeners,
That's
not
true.
to me.
Yeah.
I already know everything. Ever.
Did you So yeah, I think that's all I had to say about the banks. But I was just like, it's just astronomically and like idiotic how the bank will lend out $10 for every dollar they have and then not go out of their way to make sure they don't just like fucking fuck themselves.
Get fucked? Well, it's because
Yeah.
they're all operating under the assumption that like there isn't going to be a It's like a lot of the stuff with the economy that we have set up.
Mhm.
You start digging into it. You're like, how the fuck? And like, you know, in a boom economy when everything's going great, nobody asks questions, nobody
Yeah.
looks into it. Like it's only when like you look at the subprime mortgage crisis which fucked over the economy, and you look at that whole situation, you're like, who the fuck allowed any of this to happen? And
Yeah.
it's kind of the same thing. Like they took a few steps to like slap people on the wrist, but like there's still a ton of shady shit and like unbelievable shit going on
Oh yeah.
in the banking industry, and
Oh,
you're just like,
you want to hear how fucking shady it is? Remember that guy Dodd-Frank who set up those like extra rules in 2011?
I thought it was two guys. I thought it was Dodd dash
Yeah.
Frank.
Oh, was it? Okay, I just assumed it was one guy. Anyways, so one of the guys who did that was actually one of the guys arguing for Silicon Valley to have less regulations and to pull back from the actual regulations he helped set up. He's like, this bank shouldn't have the regulations I suggested every bank have. Like, that's how fucking corrupt it was because he got into a different business. So what happened was he was like working for the Federal Bank Regulation Board thingy, whatever that was. And then after he quit that job and then got hired on by the bank, he was like, "Oh yeah, that stuff I said before, that only counts when I was affected by that in that business. Now I think it's a bad idea."
Yeah. I mean, like all these like protections and shit, like sure, on paper they sound and look good. But it only holds up until you realize that every single person on earth, including the people who drafted that bill and the Congress people that voted for it and the bankers that are allegedly abiding by it, really only serve they're only interested in serving themselves above
Mhm.
all else. So you have like everyone involved in this shit only interested in serving themselves. The Democrats, the Republicans, the Congress people, the bankers. No one is really looking out for you,
Yeah,
specifically
exactly.
you, Dale DeRuiter. Nobody's looking out for
They
you,
don't
man.
have to, because guess what? I don't have over $250,000 in my bank account.
Fuck.
I barely have over $2,000
This
in my bank
reminds me, I
account.
should check my remember when COVID was happening and we were like, we should start investing. And then I
Mhm.
invested some money, and then just like threw some money in there, and I have not looked
Oh, really?
in a
Let me
while,
pull a
and
mine.
my investments are unwell.
Yeah, dude, like 2 years ago, the crypto market, like no the November before last, like November 2021, crypto basically shat itself and hasn't come back. And um My other investments are like I have like $700 invested, so it's just like
Damn, big
it
spender.
goes up and down like $2, and I'm like, what am I gonna do with that? I'm not gonna pull it out. And it's like to pull it out, it costs more than $2 in like the transaction fees. So how much are you up or down? Do you know?
I am down. I only put so in my like stock buying. Hold
Yeah,
up. All time. All time. I invested $400 in
nice.
like just like buying stocks. No, Dale, because I invested $400
Yeah.
and now I am down to $150.
Damn.
I am
Okay.
down. Oh, I've lost $300 all time.
Oh wow. Okay, in my tax-free savings account, I've invested $661 and it's worth 517. In my and on my personal account is the stuff I moved over from I moved stuff out of my personal account into the tax-free account because I didn't know. So a TFSA, everyone who doesn't know stocks, is a tax-free savings account. So when you put money in there, you can put up to 5 grand a year. You don't have to pay taxes
You get a tax break.
on yeah, and
It's
if you
great.
make money from those investments, you don't have to pay income tax on the money you make from there. But in your personal one, you do. I didn't know that, so I had like the money that's in my TFSA was from my personal account, and my personal account I invested $239 in, and it is worth $22.
Yikes. We
And that
are not great investors. I
yeah,
would.
and that is I bought this thing called STNG, Stinger Resources, and I
Why?
bought because it was what was it? It was like 50 cents a share. So I bought a bunch of them just so I because it seemed cheap, and then they dropped down to like 30 cents, and yeah, they're fudged.
Why, Dale?
Because Derek. Um, did you want to talk about what you hinted at last week, or is it too late in the game for that?
What was it? What I hint
Well,
at?
remember last episode you're like, I want to talk about like sexuality and stuff. Do you remember?
No. Oh,
Oh.
no, I want to do okay, so there's like this like fucking weird moral panic going on in the States right now with like um transgender people and drag shows. And it was something where I was like, I think it warrants like a full episode because there's just so much increasingly insane shit going on as the like religious right tries to fight against the scourge of drag queens and
Mhm.
transgenderism and all this shit. Um, and then like increasingly insane shit as the like woke left tries to fight back against the like authoritative right for
Yeah.
and it's just like this like increasingly bizarre arms race against at which like drag queens and transgender people, which I understand are two totally different classes of people, seem to be at the center. And like I remember
Mhm.
like fucking like what 10 years ago, 5 years ago, drag shit was just like this fun campy thing that you would do with your like you could go to drag brunches or you could see like drag like go to like drag just like drag shows. And now it's
Yeah.
become um this like fucking weird front on in the latest culture wars being fought over all this drag shit, and like
Yeah, it was
states are
like
making it illegal for drag shows to exist, which is
well, yeah, some are. It all started with Drag Queen Story Hour
yeah,
because like drag was around for like you said, it's been around for like since Greece and
yeah.
nobody gave a shit. And then I don't know why Drag Queen Story Hour hit so hard, but it was like Drag Queen Story Hour hit, and then people were like, well, I guess it's because drag shows are like a cabaret, so it's like the equivalent of dudes dressing up like women and doing like Vegas dancing or burlesque dancing, and that's what cabaret is. It's like not quite stripper dancing, so you
No,
have
it's
like
it's racy, it's sexually
yeah, so
suggestive.
people think I guess they thought that drag queens were doing cabaret dancing, which is sexualized, but like PG-13 sexualized or whatever in front of kids, and then they got into this moral panic, and then it's almost like the 2010s version of Satanic Panic,
Yeah.
where, like, in the 1980s, they thought that everybody was, like, satanic and abusing their kids and shit, whereas in 2010, it's like, they think that all the drag queens are, like, molesting their kids and shit in
Well,
these
that's yeah.
libraries.
So it's like if you try to like make any effort to be like, well, like even if you're just like, hey, I don't think the drag queens at Story Hour are like dancing for these kids. I'm pretty sure they're
Yeah,
just
no,
reading stories,
but the
and they're
fucked
like,
up
you're a
yeah,
fucking groomer. You probably touch kids yourself.
yeah,
And it's yeah,
but the fucked up thing is there are weirdos in every walk of life. And I'm not saying that all drag queens are, but there are people who took advantage of the situation and did dance sexually in front of children. And that's where the whole problem started, was because there was some asshole who did it. And then all these like super right wing parents thought that all of the drag queen story hours were going down like that. So they're like, we have this one example of it being bad. So they're all bad. And then it kind of just blew up from there.
yeah. Well, and I think that's part of it as well. And like, I don't actually know if this is happening, but this is just my assumption is that in order to like troll those people, and like fight back in the culture war, some drag performers are maybe going out of their way
Oh, yeah.
to like hit back and be like, yeah, fuck yeah, you don't want me to get sexual at this story hour? Guess what? Guess what?
Yeah.
Guess what? Here's the Buffalo Bill or whatever. Here it is. I'm showing it to your kids.
Yeah. And then, like, everybody's seen, like, the one video from the UK. The funny thing was the worst
I haven't
one,
seen it.
there's this one where this guy's wearing, like, a mankini, and he's, like, not quite twerking, but he's dancing, and you can, like, see both of his full ass cheeks and his bulge in, like, a leopard like, what you would see at the beach in Europe, basically,
Yeah,
like a dude in a Speedo, and people, like, lost their shit about it.
I've worn
And
speedos
then
around children exclusively. I only like wearing my speedo around children.
and then
Got to
there's,
show them
like
who has the bigger hog.
I think okay, this is gonna sound right wing of me, but I think what Tennessee is doing, maybe not make it a felony, is right, because what they're doing is they're saying all cabaret shows should not be performed in front of children,
No,
and
fuck
I'm
no,
okay
that's
with
not
that.
right. I'm not fucking okay with that.
You want burlesque dancing in front of kids?
No, I want parents the same way it's been for thousands of years. If a parent wants to be a shitty parent and take their kid
Yeah.
to an R-rated movie or a burlesque show or a fucking like violent like UFC fight or even like WWE, fucking let them and then let them deal with the fallout from it. Why the fuck are we saying that
That's
oh,
actually a very good point.
parents should absolutely fucking have the right to make shitty decisions as long as they aren't like exposing their children to actual literal harm. That is where I would draw the line.
Wait, isn't there age limits on that already?
Yeah, you would think for the racy shit, like most fucking bars, and that's why I think the Tennessee thing was like a little bit of like just fucking like posturing. But I know there are things that kind of blur the line. So there's like
Yeah.
drag brunch is like a really popular thing that like sprung up over the last little while, and you could go like go eat brunch, see a drag show. And most cities had family bringing their children to the show, and you would be like, "Is this appropriate?" But you would just keep your fucking mouth shut because if they want to be bad parents, that's their prerogative. We're allowed to be bad parents.
Yeah, the thing for me is it's like, because drag shows, they have different levels. Like, you have the drag shows which are, like, dudes doing burlesque, and then you have drag shows which are, comedy, like, comedy and, music shows
Yeah.
slash fashion shows. Those whatever, but it's like, they should almost, like, make it if there's, like, nudity, it should be a different level, like, it should be, like, drag plus or something.
Well, I don't can there forgive my ignorance. Can there be
No,
nudity
well,
in a
they could
drag
be
show when
no, because drag queens don't have the
Yeah.
pieces because they're not transsexuals, but they
Yes.
could have. Well, they could show their bottom bits and their butt cheeks, but what I mean, well, I'm thinking like then you get into the whole fake nudity where you'd have like silicone breasts. Sometimes they do stuff like that, but I don't
Yeah,
know if that
that which I get,
counts.
and it's like I will say that it's like drag inherently is like sexualized to an
Mm-hmm.
extent, but it's not overtly sexual. Like
Yeah.
if we see a uh fuck, like I'm sure this has happened, but like some like hillbilly parents taking the kids to like a wet t-shirt contest in the South.
Yeah.
We gonna make that like again an example of bad parenting,
Mm-hmm.
not a felony,
Yeah.
not against the law, which
Mm-hmm.
is like what all this shit should be. Like I do not think bad parenting should be a crime unless the kids are like actually abused. That's
Yeah.
that's beyond bad parenting. That's not.
Yeah, and let's not get it twisted because this isn't about parents trying to save themselves from nudity. They're trying to save their kids from nudity. All they're trying to do is they're scared that their sons will see drag queens and want to be drag
Be what?
queens.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
all they're
They're not
which makes them terrible parents to begin with.
also, yes. But like
Mhm.
again, like oh, we're gonna make it we're gonna make it a crime to be a hateful, bigoted idiot and teach your kids hateful, bigoted shit, or like no, we can't do that. That is their right as parents to raise little shitty bigots
Mhm.
on their own.
Yeah. Did that cover everything you wanted to say about it?
Yeah, there's just been like so many examples of this
Yeah.
happening lately, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like even in Coquitlam, Coquitlam, British Columbia, which is like as far away from the culture war as you could
Yeah.
expect, because it's like a fucking suburb of Vancouver where nothing interesting ever happens. And they did a drag queen story hour at one of the libraries here, and then like predictably all these fucking protesters came out and then these counter protesters came out, and it's just like I think like bottom line, let parents decide what they expose their children to. I certainly am not asking you to fucking fight for my kids' rights, and like butt the fuck out.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
And the weird thing is, like, a suburb of Vancouver, you figure would be so left because, like, Vancouver is, like, one of the most left cities in Canada
Yeah.
because, like, this is where all the arts farts move down to come,
Yeah, but it's also we're very close. Like we straddle like Coquitlam in particular is probably like where I would place the border between like once you get east of Coquitlam, it starts to get
oh, yeah. It's where all the
very
farmers live in the valley.
very
Yeah.
conservative Bible Belt ish. So
Yeah, that's a very good point.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you done? Do you have to like, is that the end of our tight hour, or do you have a
I could
even though we're
probably
not in an hour?
you wanna do one, we could probably do one more quick. I just checked my kid's cam and he's still napping. So we can probably
Oh, fuck.
sneak another story in here.
Oh, let's talk about child-free weddings. This is nice.
Oh
This
fuck.
is
Okay.
um there's I don't know, I can't remember exactly where, but on Twitter somebody was like, everybody's mad because I had a child-free wedding. I didn't allow people to bring their kids. And then it just started this big argument about whether child-free weddings are make you a bad person or not.
No.
And I don't know, for me personally, I'm like, do whatever you want. It's your
Yeah.
fucking wedding.
It's your
In
fucking wedding.
Yeah, do whatever you want. It doesn't make you a bad person. Personally, I would have a child-friendly wedding because the people I care about have kids, and
Yeah.
I care about the kids, and I want the kids there as much as I want their
Well,
adults
that's the
parents.
thing, right? Like, I think it all depends on like your personal tolerance and exposure to children. But like,
Yeah.
I don't think if it's like this is like probably the last greatest party a lot of people. A wedding is like the last greatest party they will get as adults
Yeah.
in their lifetime, right?
Mhm.
So if you want to make it child free, I don't think that makes you like a selfish or shitty person. It just means that you are not that tolerant of children, which is fine. Like it's your party. do whatever the
Yeah.
fuck you want. My problem is like where it starts veering into asshole territories when like I've seen a couple articles recently and one is like fucking kids shouldn't be allowed in restaurants and one was like kids shouldn't be allowed on airplanes and I'm like, well, those are both like kind of like necessary. Why are we gonna ban children from public, you
Yeah.
joyless fucks? But
They
a
have
wedding,
they have restaurants where kids can't go. They're called pubs.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, bars. Yeah, go
Yeah.
to one of those. Um, airplanes, like tough shit, buddy. Like I've been, yeah,
Yeah.
we've all been there. You've been on an airplane and you got some like fucking caterwauling toddler who can't keep their shit
Mhm.
together, and the parent is usually trying their best to like rein their child in, and
Yeah.
it won't. And now I'm the guy flying with a fucking baby who, like, luckily my baby slept the entire fucking flight to and from Florida last time, and now we're flying to Mexico again in 2 days.
Yeah.
And he might be a fucking asshole, and if he is, sorry to the people sitting around us, but also fuck
Mhm.
you because we got places to be.
You know what I would be okay with is if they had flights that were, like,
No.
adult only. Not like
Oh,
adult only, but like how you have 55 plus
yeah.
like apartment buildings where old people go to be old and they don't wanna hear the joy of kids. They just wanna be old and shitty. They should have the equivalent for flights. Like, you shouldn't have no kids allowed to fly, but you should have, like, you could pay an
The
extra
option.
$30 to
Yeah.
go on this adult only flight.
If you want to pay the premium, like I'm surprised more airlines haven't done this because airlines love the opportunity to make a quick
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
buck. Um, I thought you were going to go the other way and say there should be like kid only flights where we take all the families and put
Ju
them on the same flight. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that would be a fucking nightmare and
You
a
know
half.
what you could do? You could even go the other way, whereas instead of making people pay a premium to go on the no kids, you could get a discount if you go on the family plane. So it basically like the plane would basically have a family discount where you pay less, and then all the families go on that plane because 'cause you're a family, you wanna save money, and you don't really care about other kids because you have your own, so you're used to it and stuff. And then anybody who isn't into that can like just pay more. I'm definitely okay with that. And
Yeah,
restaurants, we already
100%.
have kid-free restaurants and
Yeah,
weddings. Yeah, like I
you
think.
can
Sorry, I was gonna. Yeah, go ahead.
go. You go ahead,
No, I was
Dale.
gonna go back to the wedding. So you say what you were gonna say.
You go.
Okay, I was gonna say maybe I'm not as affected by these kid-free weddings is because I had kids later, and most of our friends also had kids later. So a lot of the weddings me and you went to were childless, not basically by being mandated childless, but just being childless because nobody had kids.
Nobody had kids.
Yeah,
Naturally child. Wait, I'm trying to think. I think our friends Sean and Lindsay, I
yeah.
think, had a child-free wedding. Did they not?
Was it mandated no kids?
I believe so.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just didn't have kids,
I
or
think
I
it
didn't
would.
really know anybody who had kids. Did you have
Yeah,
Noah by already then?
yeah. We had Noah by then.
And he didn't come?
He wasn't there, no. And I'm
Huh.
thinking that's why. Although maybe we just like left him with a sitter or something,
Yeah,
anyways.
but the other thing too is for size wise to have a wedding in Vancouver, you're not gonna be able to afford to have too many people. So, you're gonna tell people that if they have more than a certain amount of people that are invited to the restaurant
Yeah,
or to the wedding that they have to pay, like, you have your RSVP, maybe you don't give plus ones and you just have your RSVP, so if people wanna take their kids, they have to, like, pay more so that they can offset the cost, but then just have a cheap wedding in a cheaper place. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. Like the flip side of that is that like, okay, now Noah's a little bit older. Like
Mhm.
now he loves weddings. Like he was, you saw him at fucking Jared Meg's. Like he
Oh,
was
yeah,
shaking his ass the entire night. Um,
and
but
it's
like
funny
when,
because you were saying the wedding for a lot of people is their last big party. For kids, it's their first big party.
yeah, that's true. First time I ever got drunk was at a wedding. I was
Not what I meant, but
I was 6 years old. Just kidding.
what?
Uh,
Were there drag queens there?
There were, yeah. It was very. They exposed me to everything all at once. That's why I'm so fucking tolerant now. Um, the uh, the flip side is that, like, for a lot of kids, a wedding is a very fucking dry and boring thing to
Oh
go to,
yeah.
right? So, like, in a lot of situations, I think the kids would almost prefer to not be there as well.
Yeah. Well, especially I could see actually, you know what? I say have a kid-free ceremony because no kid wants to sit through a
No,
wedding ceremony and then bring the kids to the
drag show.
yeah. What's the fucking thing afterwards?
Reception. The
Yeah, bring
traditional
mhm.
post wedding drag show slash twerking competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, I think I might have been to some child-free weddings that I just never thought of, besides Sean's. Like, cause me and Andrea went to one in Banff like 2 days into or 2 years into when we were dating, and there were no kids there, but I just figured that was their parents didn't want to bring their kids to Banff and pay for, like, extra money for hotels and stuff.
Also probably true, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, we're going to a wedding
Mhm.
um in Mexico, and we're bringing all our fucking children. It's going to be so great. I'm really really excited to share that
Oh, dude, Noah's gonna fucking love
special
Mexico.
moment. Special moment with them.
Is this his first play time besides going to the US? Like, has he traveled with you guys much? Because he's went to Key West with you once or twice, didn't he?
No, he didn't do Key West. He's done the Jersey Shore with us once,
Oh,
Philly
yeah.
with us once, and then, well, China.
Oh, yeah, we
The one
fucking
time,
went to China. But
the one
is
time
this
with
his
them.
first place hot?
Yeah, it will be. So I
Oh,
think he'll
this is weird. It's funny
dig
because
it.
it's like, you're like, will he like it or will it just be too hot and will he be miserable? What are the
What?
odds?
No, I think he'll, because it's a fucking all inclusive, right? So he like
Oh,
we're like
yeah.
there's a I'm like, you can eat and drink whatever you want the entire week. I do not give a shit because I'm in vacation mode. Like, I don't
Nice.
fucking care. Go like run around the resort, eat whatever you want, drink this fucking Panera bread, super lemonade or whatever the fuck. I don't care. Just
Dude, you
get out of
gotta
my
get
sight.
one of those. Yeah. Oh, dude, and then you could, like, go to the swim up bar and get him like, virgin daiquiris and
Oh,
shit.
we're gonna do like virgin pina coladas and the whole fucking 9 yards.
Nice. Oh, that sounds awesome.
But it's also like there's always that half where I'm like, yeah, it's fucking cool that I get to do that with my kid. But then the other half, which is like, this would be so much more fucking relaxing without children. Like, it's so much more.
It's true because you're thinking like, yeah, you can't sleep till noon if you have your kid
No,
there.
it's gonna be work the whole fucking time is gonna
Mhm.
be dealing with the baby or dealing with the 9-year-old or dealing with the 9-year-old and the baby or
Yeah.
dealing with other people's fucking
Well,
kids.
especially now that he's like, can eat everything he wants, like, for sure he's gonna vomit at least once
Oh
because of
yeah.
some weird
Well,
shit.
and that's part of the ploy too, right? Is like, if he gets like violent
Nice.
diarrhea and he's just in a bathroom the whole time,
Ah, old
built in
school parenting, I
built in
love it.
babysitter, right? Anything else you want to cover before we duck the fuck out?
No, that's it.
Ah!
There was that woke thing that when that right-wing person who wrote a book about being woke, and then someone was like, "What is woke?" And they couldn't explain it.
And she couldn't. Yeah.
That was, like, funny but disingenuous at the same time because it's like, who doesn't know what woke is and shit?
Well, I saw this guy wrote a really good blog post. A guy who's like kind of a liberal wrote a
Mhm.
blog post about what wokeness is, and it was actually like super critical of wokeness and like everything that it like stands for now. And
Yeah,
I was like, oh shit. I'll share it with you,
do it.
and then we can talk about it in our next.
Yeah, and I'll put it in the show notes so everybody can talk about it. Do you wanna save it for next week? Because it's not really a timely thing, so it doesn't matter. But,
Yeah,
like,
let's do
I
that.
kinda started down a rabbit hole on the ESG credits and stuff, so we could talk about that too.
Oh yeah, we can also do that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll save it.
Uh,
This'll be our new thing. We'll just give teases for the next show at the end of all our shows.
yeah, join us next. Not next week. Yeah, it'll be like next week, but like later in the week, probably.
Oh,
Oh
wait, I might
shit,
have a kid.
you'll have a
Oh,
baby.
yeah, everybody, my due date is Wednesday, my personal due date. Andrea might be there too. So if I have a child, Andrea might not let me podcast because I would want a podcast holding the
Yeah,
crying
don't
baby.
if you got to take time off, maybe I'll find
Yeah.
some guest hosts
Yeah, you
and like
can.
take the mantle.
We can still talk or whatever, but if I'm not here next week, it's because I had a baby. So congratulate me and send me gifts.
Pre congrats.
Thank you. But also, they say the first one is always late, so I might see you in a week.
Yeah,
Or we
we'll
might
play.
wait 2 weeks or whatever.
We'll play it by ear or baby
Yeah.
ear.
Baby ear.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Outrage Factory. I've been your co-host, Derek Bolin. You can follow me on Twitter at Herder.
I've been your other co-host, Dale DeRuiter. You can follow me on the Twitter machine at SuperDaleBot. You can follow the podcast Twitter at OutrageFactPod. You can send us an email with your feedback at outragefactpod@gmail.com.
You can fucking head on over to
the book Facet, facebook.com/outragefactpod.
Go to YouTube to see our beautiful faces. If you're listening to this in your ear holes, head on over to T Public. Wait, where do we sell our merch?
Redbubble.
There's
a link in the show notes. Outrage Factory, just Google Outrage Factory in YouTube. I think it comes up. Although I don't know if, I don't think, hold on. I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to go to youtube.com/Outrage Factory and see if that works. Because sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. It does not work.
Okay. Don't do that then.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. Just search.
So here's what happens. Go youtube.com/Outrage Factory and the fucking computer overlords will figure it out that you're trying to search for Outrage Factory on YouTube and they'll bring up the link.
They will. Thanks,
because
overlords.
The link for our channel is a bunch of letters and numbers. But you'll find it. Thanks.
And until next week,
stay angry.
Did you see Lance Reddick died?